Hey, everybody. This is Chris.
And Kathy.
We wanted to take a minute to thank you all for tuning in. We appreciate every listener and are grateful for this platform.
Please help us share our vision by subscribing to our show through your favorite streaming app. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at PetAbility Podcast.
Check out our ever-growing list of affiliates and sponsors. Simply go to the show notes for information and links.
And be sure to use our promo code PETPOD22, that's PETPOD22, on checkout to receive your discount from our affiliates. And now, here's a word from our sponsor.
Hi, I'm Alon Landa, CEO of MedcoVet, and I'm a proud sponsor of PetAbility. We decided to partner with Chris and Kathy because, like them, we want to empower all pet owners who are trying to do the most for their pets. At MedcoVet, we specialize in advanced home laser therapy for pets. Laser therapy is a safe and effective treatment for common conditions like arthritis and wounds, and it relieves pain for most conditions caused by inflammation. With MedcoVet, pet owners can perform this treatment at home while receiving support from experienced clinicians. If you think your pet would benefit from healing at home, visit medcovet.com, and one of our clinical experts will work with you to determine if home laser therapy is the right fit for you and your pet. Tell them PetAbility sent you.
We have brought home from overseas or stateside at a military installation to be reunited with a former handler. So all total, just a little less than 1,300 in the last 10 years.
Welcome to PetAbility. I'm your host, Kathy Simon, certified veterinary technician and certified canine rehabilitation practitioner.
And I'm your host, Chris Cranston, licensed physical therapist and small animal physical rehabilitationist.
Our podcast provides interviews and information to help your pets live their best lives.
Hey, what up, Kathy?
Hey, Chris, how you doing today?
I am very well, thanks.
We have a really exciting guest today, and I'm really, really touched by this organization's mission. But first, let me tell you, because I think this is a great segue to our show today, is that I don't know if you know this, but today, it's tomorrow, actually. So today's 12/8/2023. So tomorrow is the Army-Navy game, and they're playing at Gillette Stadium. I was leaving one of the practices I work for, and I saw the helicopters coming in because they were inviting the public to come and check out, helicopters, particularly the Chinook helicopter, which is the troop and supply delivery helicopter. It's got two ends and those big propellers on the top. And as they're flying over, I really got sort of like struck with the sense of pride for the men and women who protect this country and the sacrifices that they make to keep us safe. And then of course my mind went right to thinking about the dogs that protect our military, right? And the sacrifices that they make to keep our people safe. So there was really a proud moment there for me, just thinking about our military and our working dogs and how we need to honor them. And these dogs are working in all kinds of aspects and all kinds of capacities, Chris. They're doing bomb detection, search and rescue, patrol. They work for the military police. I'm glad we're going to talk to an organization that really honors and respects those dogs.
So the honored guest today, his name is Bob Bryant, and he is the co-founder and chief technology officer of Mission Canine Rescue, an animal welfare group based in Houston, Texas, dedicated solely to serving our nation's working dogs. And they do this by rescuing, reuniting, rehoming, rehabilitating, and repairing American working dogs. Since 2013, Mission Canine Rescue has provided a wide array of services to working dogs in an effort to offer them a comfortable and peaceful retirement. Once they retire, they do not receive any military benefits or special protections. They become pets essentially overnight, and they're no longer vets. Historically, these dogs were abandoned or euthanized, but now Mission Canine Rescue works worldwide, focusing on retrieving dogs both from overseas and national shelter situations where they are suffering without proper care or medical attention. And to quote Bob, give these brave dogs the retirement they deserve. So as you said, Kathy, what a perfect segue.
And as you were talking about Mission Canine Rescue, I'm not sure that, maybe the general public doesn't even realize that these working dogs are sometimes euthanized and not brought back from situations where they've been protecting our military overseas.
Then unless you're involved with the military and have had an experience maybe with these working dogs, that it is top of mind at all. And I remember a few years ago, I bought this book called Top Dog, and it's the story of Marine hero Luca. It's by author Maria Gudovage. It told just a very personal story from when this dog got into, basically they're drafted right into the military, the trials and tribulations. And I was particularly struck when Luca and her original handler were separated. He wasn't sure what happened to her. And again, the weaving through time and so forth. And I don't want to give it away, but it essentially captures everything that our podcast today is going to cover. And until I read that book, I hadn't even given it a second thought. So if you get the chance, check out Top Dog by Maria Gudovage. Today, Bob will discuss these brave four-legged veterans, how they protect our country, and what happens after they retire. Welcome to PetAbility, Bob.
Welcome, Bob.
Thank you very much for inviting me to be on your show today. I appreciate it.
We're very excited to have you. To get started, can you just share a bit about your background and what inspired you to get involved in animal rescue, and specifically focusing on military and working dogs with Mission Canine Rescue?
How I got involved in this was through my business. My primary source of income is credit card processing. I work primarily with internet merchants, and I was looking through some big groups on Facebook that I thought might be receptive to a revenue sharing offer to promote my services to merchants in their group that might need service. And I would then share revenue with the organizations. I met the previous organization that Mission Canine evolved from. My current partners, Louisa Kastner and Kristen Maurer, our founder, were involved at the time, but another person ran the organization. And they liked what I had to say. We went forward with it. We were able to do well, and we did so well. We saw the necessity to start advertising, and the executive director at that time said, under no circumstances will I ever spend a dime on advertising. And a month later, that individual had to get a quote unquote real job, and she disbanded the organization. Kristen and Louisa reached out to me and said, we don't want to stop this. We like what we're doing. Will you help us co-found a new organization? I had experienced what they'd done for 2 years at that point. I'd met some of the dogs. I'd met the dogs' handlers. I had seen the need and the shape that some of the contract working dogs came in with from overseas after years of neglect. And I didn't hesitate. I said, absolutely. And now we've just had our 10-year anniversary, and I can tell you that I could not have made a better decision. We've been very successful, and we've helped a tremendous number of dogs that would have never otherwise had a chance.
I think you made a fantastic decision there, Bob. I agree. And the Mission Canine Rescue really speaks to me. And, when I was reading the website, you had their mission statement was to rescue, reunite, rehome, rehabilitate, and repair any retired working dog that has served mankind in any capacity.
Correct.
So, yeah, I think that's tremendous. That's a tremendous gift, I think, for, these dogs have given us so much. And before, we introduced you, we were talking about this sort of unyielding valor that these animals have, and how they protect us and protect our military. So I think they deserve this.
Correct. I do too. Been living that life for 10 years now.
Bob, let's get more into the mission. It's 5 prongs, as we've mentioned a couple times, but can we go through and perhaps you can give us some statistics or examples? So the first prong on the mission is to rescue. So how many dogs have been rescued in the past 10 years?
Let's break up the difference between dogs that are rescued and dogs we have also handled, but then reunited with a former handler. These are dogs that were not necessarily in our care, but without our assistance to facilitate the transportation from overseas, they would have never had the opportunity to be reunited with their former handlers. In the last 10 years, we've actually rescued and adopted out 642 dogs. These are dogs that we've maintained in our ranch, that we provided vet care for, that we have learned all their quirks and needs, and then we found them the perfect families. An additional 654 working dogs we have brought home from overseas or stateside at a military installation to be reunited with a former handler. So all total, just a little less than 1,300 in the last 10 years.
Fantastic.
Bob, how do these dogs find you, or how do you find them?
Well,
how do they come to you? Yeah.
Okay. Well, after 10 years, the military handlers all know that we're the organization to talk to, excuse me, when it's time for their dog to retire from service. Normally, we will hear from the handler when the dog is about to be dispositioned as excess. Yes, they're still considered excess equipment and not a soldier. And we'll talk a little bit about that later, and maybe hope we can get that changed sometime soon. We will then reach out to the where the working dog is housed at their kennel overseas or stateside. We will talk to the kennel master, and then we will make arrangements to bring the dogs to the handler, and then we will reunite the dog wherever we meet up with them at the airport. Now, something you may not know, a military working dog can have up to 5 handlers in its service life. And it's not always the last handler or the first handler that gets the dog. The military kind of gets to decide that. However, a reason a handler might not take his former dog is maybe because they've got a small child and he's had a patrol dog that's very aggressive, he's toy crazy, and, the kid might get bitten through no fault of the dog's. It would just happen. Another handler might be gone frequently and the dog's too active, so they will find a way to get the dog in the best situation with one of the dog's former handlers, so the dog is not in an unknown situation. And it's always worked out quite nicely. The dogs always recognize the handlers, and it's real cool to watch them reunite.
I bet you see those those homecomings, if you will, and the reuniting online many times, and they're always tear jerkers, and it's just a win-win for everyone. So when you're talking about rescue, I guess we've kind of covered the next 2 prongs, because you somehow get these working dogs into your network, and then I guess the reuniting is reuniting with the handler. The rehoming is finding them the best home if a handler isn't an option. I saw that the website says the handler is always the preferred option. Can you explain why that is?
Well, they know the dog's nature. They've worked with the dog. They've slept with the dog. They've fed the dog. The dog is comfortable with their nature. It's not a new relationship or a bond that needs to be formed. It's an existing bond that's never ended.
And you say no matter when the handler was in that dog's life, they always remember and they have that relationship.
Absolutely. And I also want to mention, when it comes to rescue, we also rescue, and now military working dogs are the easy ones, because we know when they're getting retired, we know they're getting great care while they're still at their last kennel. They're getting fed, they're getting exercise. The dogs that we really worry about are contract working dogs. These are dogs that are not owned by the United States military. They're trained and owned by private contractors that often work in conjunction or parallel with the military, or they perform other services such as explosives or narcotics detection at airports, ports of entry, things like that. These dogs are often handled by foreign nationals, and when the companies are done with them, a lot of the times they just get stuck in kennels and forgotten. They get fed about half of what they're supposed to. They don't get veterinary care. They don't get exercise. We've gotten some dogs that weigh 40 pounds that should weigh 70 home from shady contractors. And we try to reach out and use our network to find out when these dogs need to come home, because they have an even greater need than the military working dogs. And these are dogs that we actually take into our care And we do the last parts of our mission, which we're going to get into, which is the rehabilitate and repair part of it. These dogs get everything they need when they come to us. So the military dogs are the easy ones. The contract dogs are the tougher ones, but they're all trained basically with the same skills and tasks. It's just different ownership and different level of care. Mm-hmm. Now, there are some good contractors. I don't want to tell you all of them stink. There's some very good ones here in the United States, but there's some awful ones too. We try to keep our nose to the ground to sniff out the ones that really need us to jump in and help them out.
I'd like to delve a little bit more into the rehabilitating part, because I'm always interested in the emotional lives of animals. And I probably talk about it on every podcast we have about animals' emotional states. And I imagine that these animals must come home with some emotional trauma, right? They've been working in tense situations. They've been working with several handlers. So I imagine they may have what might be the human equivalent of a PTSD. Is that possible? Is that what's happening to them?
Yeah. No equivalent. It's exactly the same thing. I would say that probably 50% of the dogs we deal with have some sort of PTSD from the environment that they were made to work in. And a lot of people ask us, well, how do you fix that? And the answer is you don't fix it. You learn to spot what triggers it, and you learn to avoid what those triggers are and give them more of what does not trigger it. It involves, the PTSD part, but a lot of these dogs may be in pain and their contractor companies didn't even know it. So when a dog comes to us, within the first few days, they go to our local veterinarian, they get a full workup. Anything that dog needs is done for him, and we find out any issues that they have. And a lot of times that takes care of 50% of the trouble right there, just getting the dogs healthy.
I like that one, you're saying that their emotional trauma is a management thing. I wholeheartedly agree. There's no fixing, there's managing. And that doesn't mean that this dog wouldn't make somebody a great animal, but it's something that you have to consider if you're thinking about taking one of these dogs into your home, that this is a management and it's a forever management of this, emotional trauma for these dogs. But also, we did a whole show just recently on pain and behavior and how pain affects behavior. So yes, you got to go take them to the vet and get their hips checked and their elbows checked, and because sometimes pain is a driving factor for some behaviors. So
we also, just to clarify, when we adopt a dog to the public, and a lot of people say, well, you have to be in the military to adopt a dog. No, we adopt to just about to a lot of different types of people. However, the people we want to adopt to are the people that will not afford the cost of veterinary care. If you don't have the funds or you don't want to take your dog to the vet, please don't ask to adopt a dog from us. We won't agree to it. Right. They got to have care for life.
Let's talk a little bit about the expense to your organization that proper medical care takes. And
you're about to open my main pet peeve and my earworm that I'm going to put in your ear. So go ahead.
Yes, please do.
Well, yeah, I want to talk about that, but also before we move on too far, just bringing these dogs from overseas. I read on your website that it's like $12,000 when a dog was brought from their mission in Afghanistan when we pulled out, fairly recently.
Correct. Yeah. One of them costs close to $12,000 to get home. Guam is about a $7,000 trip. Italy, probably $3,000. Japan's $5,000 to $6,000. It's just the cost of the live air cargo. It's ridiculously expensive.
Right. So I wanted to shed light on that because I'm sure many people don't think that the cost is that high. And
a lot of people also think that the government automatically sends them home on their nickel. In 2016, then President Obama signed a portion of the National Defense Authorization Act that within it contained a clause that military working dogs retired outside of the continental United States would be brought home by military transport. And the military got around that until 2021 by calling foreign operating bases United States soil. And so they wouldn't do it. Just recently, in the past year and a half, we've seen some cooperation. We picked up 3 dogs that the military brought to us in Seattle from Japan. Now, we still had to get them all the way across the country, but we were thankful that we saved ourselves $18,000 in the process. So they are helping more. But with contract working dogs, a contractor doesn't have any money to begin with, and they're only giving you the dog because the dog's of no use to them, and you're going to have to pay the toll.
So let's circle back to then the medical expenses.
All right, medical expense. In the last 10 years, and here's where I'm going to jump on my soapbox, and I want all your listeners, if you pay attention to nothing else, pay attention carefully to what I'm about to say. In the last 10 years, we've spent nearly $2 million on veterinary care for working dogs. Working dogs who served the United States of America that were, quote, employed, unquote, or conscripted by the United States military. When a serviceman or servicewoman retires from the military, they have TRICARE, they have health care, they're taken care of. These dogs give everything and they get nothing. We are trying our hardest to pressure Congress and the Senate to demand that a bill be constructed. I've got a guy that can send you all later that's trying to work on it, that these dogs should get care for life. Their adopter should not have to pay the cost of a health condition brought on by their government service.
How many active service dogs are we talking about? Military dogs?
Oh, well, let's talk about retired dogs, because active dogs get great vet care. Let's talk about retired ones. There's probably 1,500 dogs roughly retired right now.
Yeah. How many do you have in your care at the ranch?
About 48 at the moment.
48. Okay.
And these are a mixture of Belgian Malinois, German Shepherds, maybe a Labrador Retriever or two. The Belgian Malinois is the primary dog used for working dogs in the world these days. They're faster than Shepherds, they're lighter, and they're less prone to hip dysplasia.
You mentioned they're not as prone to hip dysplasia. I was seeing that a lot of your medical expenses, or at least a percentage of it, goes to total hip replacements.
Well, no, we've had about 5 to 6 dogs that have had total hip replacements. We don't see that many.
Okay.
We see a lot of joint issues in the legs that we take care of, but ligaments, things like that. But no, we're not doing a ton of hip replacements. But if it's necessary and the dog can have the quality of life that they should have after it, then we will certainly do that.
Are these dogs retired because of their medical issues, or do they retire these dogs at a certain age? Or what determines that they are now relieved of duty?
Okay, there are a couple of things that, again, this is another pet peeve. I wish that all contractors in the military would retire dogs at 8 years old, just so they could have the quality of life that they deserve at some point in their life. They are retired when their work drive slows, or when they become injured, or they just don't want to work anymore. And other than that, I've seen a military working dog that was 13 that was just retired. Poor dog lived 6 months, but he had crazy drive. He liked to work, but he had no real life. He had no family. He lived a life in a kennel.
And you mentioned, what's near and dear to Kathy and my heart is rehabilitation in the physical sense, because we're both, physical rehabilitators for dogs on the pet side. And, we talk about even our house pets are athletes on a daily basis. You take Kathy's pug jumping onto the couch. That's no small feat.
Yeah.
These dogs train like athletes all their lives, and they have injuries similar to what athletes have. Exactly. And I have the greatest of respect for our military, but they're going to they will use their assets until they're worn out, because again, dogs are not considered as soldier assets; or considered equipment.
What are the dogs doing that overseas for working? What are their jobs? What are their primary duties?
Some of them are they're patrol dogs, or patrolling foreign operating bases. They are actively used to attack the enemy in caves, things like that. They sniff out roadside bombs, and they find drug caches. Just depends on their training. Generally, dogs are dual purpose. They're either patrol and drugs, or patrol and explosive. They're not cross-trained for both types of compounds.
So I kind of want to go back to, if somebody were interested in adopting from your organization, You touched on a little bit of it, but can we dive a little deeper into,
Sure.
what makes a good home? What challenges, you face? I know your website doesn't have any pictures of the dogs, and it was explained.
There's a reason for that.
Explained. Go ahead, Bob. Tell that reason.
When I post a photo of a dog on Facebook, you'll see a lot of pictures. We have a dog of the week every week on Facebook, because people used to say, "How do I know you've really got dogs? You never post photos." Well, everybody, when they see that photo, will get 50 applications for that dog. And it's more than likely 49 of those applications are not a fit for that dog because the dog has needs that their home does not provide. Okay, so Bob, what are those needs? This is what we're looking for in our adopters. We love that people love animals, all animals, but working dogs are not going to meld and fit in too well with a home full of other animals. Some of them are not dog friendly. Most of them want to eat cats and other small animals. If you have another dog, that's fine. We'll try. Some of our dogs are dog friendly, but I would say 65% of them aren't. Be available to have time for the dog you want to adopt. Dogs that are left home alone cause problems. Because they're bored. They'll destroy things, or they will ingest things, and you'll wind up with a huge vet bill. Just out of boredom, they'll eat stuff. Make sure that you have the physical energy to get your dog out and physically exercise them. I've got a German Shepherd named Navy. He's 7 years old. He's retired from a police department up in Canada. And I have to basically take him out and entertain him about 3 miles worth a day, or he'll drive me absolutely crazy wanting to go places. They need exercise. And also, you must be able to afford the cost of vet care. And your dog, and this is where some people will tell you, oh, it's just a dog. Well, no, it's not just a dog to us. These dogs need to be part of your family. That means they live inside, not outside. It means they're not stuck in the yard all day when you're gone. If you're going to get a dog to be gone to work all day and leave the dog in the yard, don't adopt. Please don't adopt from us. We want our dogs to have the very best for their remaining years.
Bob, as you're relaying some of this, it makes me think of people retiring. And some people do great in retirement. They're more than happy to get a book and sit on the beach and, twiddle their thumbs all day. And other people can't stand retirement because they need to keep busy.
That would be me. I'm 60. I'm 67 years old. I could have retired 2 years ago. I own 3 companies and I co-founded Mission Canine. I would be absolutely lost without my work. I need to work. I need to be busy. I would be totally bored to death with no work to do.
It's a good analogy because, they've been working, and then all of a sudden you can't go from 100 to 0, so, some of the qualities and characteristics that you're looking for in these adopters obviously recognize that or pay homage to that. And speaking of that, are there specific, I want to say, personal characteristics that make a good adopter? So not necessarily having the money to pay for them, not that they can live indoors, and not that they can get them physically exercise, but is there a personality type? Or
we want people that genuinely appreciate the service these dogs have given so unselfishly without ever being asked. We want them to respect what they've done and what their lives have been about to this point. That's what we're looking for. And we get people that want dogs for protection. Our dogs are, I want everybody to know, our dogs are retired. It'd be like asking, you 10-year-old dog, it'd be like asking 70-year-old grandpa to fight for you. Sure, grandpa might win, but he may not be in real good shape after the fight. So if you want a dog for protection, if you want a service dog for whatever reason to flip on your lights or, make you more emotionally stable, it's not our dogs. Our dogs need that same emotional care. You need a young dog that's specifically trained for those noble causes of service. And we also don't want people adopting dogs just to get them on the airplane and get in first and call them a service dog. We don't tolerate that.
If they have the respect for the service that dog has provided to our country, to our police force, that typically makes a successful adopter. There aren't any specific, characteristics or personality traits. It's just having that respect.
We adopt everybody, red, green, purple, pink. We don't care.
Man, woman.
It doesn't matter. We just want to love their dogs. Now, if you're a small female and you're wanting to apply for an 80-pound German Shepherd that's had patrol training and can drag you down a hill because you can't handle it, we're going to suggest you maybe consider a different dog.
You know, we talk about this on other shows too, about it's not just with these working dogs. Anytime you're going to bring a dog into your house, it's best to think about what your lifestyle can handle. That's why I have a pug. That's my lifestyle. You don't want to bring in that 80-pound Malinois that is thinking 6 or 7 steps ahead of you, or you're right, drag you down the hill. You really have to think about what these dogs are bred for doing. That can be a predictor of behavior and whether that's going to fit in with your lifestyle or not. It wouldn't fit in with mine. Do I love Malinois? They're awesome. Would I have one? Never fit my lifestyle.
My German Shepherd named Navy, he's a patrol and drug dog. I mentioned he came from a Canadian police department. He's a dog that we would likely, maybe 1 out of 200 people would be able to adopt him and handle him because he is extremely handler protective. When I have him out in public, my head is on a swivel. I don't want anybody coming up to us. And, in public, when he's up close, I mean, he's got a big old muzzle on and he loves it because he gets treats when he wears it. So it's not one of these bad things, but it's just to protect him and it's to protect the people around him because he has lived in an environment where his interactions with people have been less than favorable.
Right. Once they've been placed in the home and they've had that ability to sort of decompress, do you feel like they're able to make strong bonds with their new owners and their new family?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I got Navy 3 years ago. He was bonded to me within a month, and now he wants to go everywhere I go. He's laying here being lazy on the floor right now in the office. He just wants to be with me. He'd rather be with me than be with my wife unless she has treats and the deal's off.
I think that's the dog code.
Now, we have several dogs that were in the contract working dog world. We have 3 of them that just came home from Kabul, Afghanistan a couple of months ago. There were a bunch of contract dogs owned by a Canadian working dog company that were left at the airport. Their people had to get out of there. Their safety was imminent. And they said, oh, no, there was no dogs. Well, there were no military dogs left. There were contract working dogs that we are connected with, and we've managed to get 6 out in the last 3 months. So these dogs have served. They have seen combat. They've been in hellish situations. But they're still great dogs, and they'll still make for a great pet, literally a pet. They can learn to be pets and not working dogs. However, they still got that drive. My Shepherd still finds me marijuana every time we go out to the park. Just about every other time he'll hit on a bush. I'll look in there and there's some pipe or something like that. He found a crack pipe once and I don't know, we don't want that.
As people learn what you look like and Navy, they probably run the other direction. They're like, oh shit, I'm going to get busted.
Exactly. My partner, Kristen, one story I'll tell you, we went to Las Vegas for a Petco thing. I think it was about 9 years ago. She had a German Shepherd named Roxy. Roxy was white. She was a drug detection dog. And we were in an elevator in Las Vegas going up. This guy got on. He reeked of, you could smell the weed. And she started sniffing at his pocket and alerted. And he said, what's that dog doing? I said, she's telling me you got weed in your pocket. He had pressed the 10th floor. The 3rd floor door opened. Out he went. He hooked him. He thought we were the cops. Arrest him.
That's kind of fun, actually, little Bob, just to mess with them a little bit.
Exactly. She's like, oh, I know you got some weed in your pocket there, buddy. How about you give it to us?
Wow. So, Bob, do you have any particularly heartwarming, moving success stories? Can you give us a specific example of maybe one dog and put a name?
Sure, I can. I'll talk to you about Vance and military working dog Icar. Vance handled Icar in Afghanistan. They were separated for a couple of years. We were able to transport Icar when he was ready to retire. And it was reunion with Vance. It was very cool. He went crazy, jumping up and down, barking. And Vance even retrained him as his quote unquote pet, not working dog. Icar learned how to find elk antler sheds up in the wilderness where Vance lives up in Ohio. And so they made another handler dog duo finding antlers of all things. And Icar passed not too long ago, but he was an absolutely great dog.
He found his purpose when he came home. Just,
Yeah,
finding these antlers, he found his purpose. Yeah.
They need a job. They still do. I had a Labrador Retriever. He was a bomb dog. He learned to smell buried tennis balls and lacrosse balls. He found over 500 in the time I had him.
That's a lot.
That was great. Every time. Oh, and I would sell the buried lacrosse balls to the used sporting goods store for $2 a piece. The dog made money. He was employed.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think all dogs need a job, and particularly these dogs with the high drive. They really need to have a purpose and not just sit around.
I was just curious, going back to Icar, why did Vance want elk antlers?
Oh, because Vance works with the state wildlife commission. He's out in nature a lot, and he just first of all, elk antlers are very valuable. You've seen these lamps that are made from the discarded antlers.
Yes,
those say they're like $300-400 a pop. I mean, that was a very profitable find when he find these things. We also had another guy that taught his dog how to find truffles.
And those are a hot commodity too.
They are, and they're deep
they are.
underground. That's not an easy. They're not easy to find. And we learned recently that there's a particular scent to them, and they're deep underground. That's why they use pigs to sniff them out.
Correct.
Bob, can you tell us, are there any upcoming projects or initiatives that Mission Canine Rescue is excited about? Do you have some involving future plans that maybe our listeners can be privy to? Okay, do tell.
I'll tell you quite a few things. First of all, our work reuniting working dogs continues on a month-to-month basis. We have 3 to 4 reunions a month. There's never a month that we're not spending at least $20,000 on veterinary care for true medical needs of our dogs. Our biggest project we want to undertake this year is we want to build a newer kennel building. Our initial building we put up back in 2015, and due to we're in Magnolia, Texas, and Magnolia is just north of Houston, and the humidity down there can get off the charts sometime. And over the years, there's been some rust along the bottom of the kennel, and we want to get we want to build a new facility, and that's going to cost us about $200,000 to do that. So that's our plans over the next year and a half, as we need to get that structure completed. We're not wanting to take care of any additional dogs because, unfortunately, over the last 6 months, 2 rescues have been shut down by the government because of hoarding conditions, because they, just took just one more dog. Sometimes just one more dog will break you, and you have to learn when your capacity and to stay there. So we're fine with the capacity we've got, but I'm not gonna say, oh, if we get another kennel, we can go up to 100 dogs. No, 50 dogs is our max, and that's almost too much at that point. We have a great kennel staff. We have a kennel master and a veterinary technician that actually, they're married. They live at our ranch facility, and they take wonderful care of our dogs. And then we have 6 or 7 different kennel techs that actually work and handle the dogs on a daily basis, exercise them, evaluate them, everything that's needed to get them prepped to be adopted.
I just want to remind people that Mission Canine Rescue is a nonprofit, and 93 cents of every dollar goes directly to support and care of these heroes.
Right. And people ask me, well, what do you do with the other 7 cents? Simple. I advertise with it to get another 93 cents.
There you go.
How can individuals, businesses, or organizations stay updated with Mission Canine's Rescue's activities or events, opportunities for volunteer, anything like that? How can they access that information?
Best way to find out everything current is probably going to be our Facebook page, which is on Facebook. It's just Mission, the letter K, the number 9, Mission K9. Our website has all our adoption information on it. It has contact forms. People that want to volunteer can go there. If someone from the military needs to be reunited with their dog, we have forms there for that. And that's at missionk9rescue.org.
I was just going to say, and Bob, I think you have like some annual fundraisers and things like that. So
Yes.
if people do check, you have an opportunity to help this organization in many ways. But I think the most is you need money, right? You need money to continue.
Let me be very candid with you. The
Mhm.
nature of a nonprofit organization is to have its hand extended. However, there needs to be some numbers met before that hand should be rewarded with money placed in it. Those numbers are, first of all, the spend toward the mission. 93% is huge. We truly are a nonprofit. And in fact, there are many times during the summers that we're literally running with our nose barely above the surface of the water, starting to drown because people will just assume that, well, somebody else will give. And I also mentioned offline that donors are excited and they want to give. For instance, I'm about to put a fundraiser up to get, I believe, 7 more dogs home from Bosnia. These are mine detection dogs. They're great dogs. They're generally people and other dog friendly, and we need to get them home. We're going to be raising money for these dogs, but even in spite of that, 93% still going toward them. You get an organization, a lot of these organizations that try to copy what we do, and there are 2 or 3 of them, they're spending thousands and thousands of dollars on marketing companies to send letters to people that are dead or 80 years old and beg them for money. We don't do that. Another thing is Charity Navigator ratings. People ask us, well, what's your Charity Navigator rating? And we say, well, we're 3 stars. Well, why aren't you 5 stars? It's simple. These charity rating sites have a little punch list, and they want you to be audited to get a 5-star rating. Let me ask you a point-blank question. If you were to give me $50,000 to help Mission Canine, and I use that to buy an audit for $50,000 to get 2 extra stars instead of bringing the dogs home you thought I would you be happy with my decision?
No.
So
No,
these,
sir.
for instance, GuideStar, you can answer the questions right and get a platinum rating. Anybody can. It's ridiculous. These sites are in business to make a profit. If you want to see the true worth of a nonprofit organization, learn how to read a Form 990. That's what we file our tax return on. It's how you separate the players from the non-players.
If somebody was listening to our podcast and they were a veterinarian or a veterinary technician, would you take services as
Yes,
offering?
absolutely. Yes, if we have a dog or dogs that are near their area that are offering veterinary care, heck yeah, I'll help our adopters anytime. Now I will be candid with you. We do get some discounts from veterinarians in our area in Houston, but we don't expect these professionals to give us away their services. I mean, we could bankrupt their practice with everything our dogs need. So we're happy to pay for some of it, but we want people to care just as much about keeping the dogs healthy once they're home as they do wanting them to come home in the first place.
Right. Their story's not over just because they made it back here. It's
Right.
really just beginning. They're going to need a lot. They're going to need medical attention. They're going to need a lot of environmental enrichment. They're going to need to decompress. They're going to need a fair amount. So, we're close to the holidays. I'm not sure when this podcast is going to come out, but if there's some organization that you are thinking to donate to, this is the one. This is the one.
And we will do your donation proudly. We will put it toward what we intended to. Nobody flies first class. Nobody stays in fancy hotels. My partners often sleep on the roadside when they're transporting dogs. We truly put our money toward our work.
Anybody who's committed to the animal community like that is really putting in their blood, sweat, and tear there. They really are.
Oh, and we've also posted all of our tax returns. I need to post our 2021 and 2022 on here, but you can go on our website. You can see what we're doing financially. We don't hide anything. We're very transparent. And if you search for Mission Canine on Google, you will find thousands of references. And you can also find a lot of videos of some of the reunions between the military working dogs and their handlers.
Yeah, you're going to need tissues. I've watched some of those videos. It's very moving.
I'm going to just pivot here a little bit, guys, because I guess one thing I still want to be able to kind of envision is the step-by-step process. So these dogs are brought over in a special plane, costs a lot of money. Then somehow they get to Houston, where your ranch is, outside of Houston.
Well, generally, we'll fly them from wherever overseas into the States. A lot of times it's to LaGuardia up in New York, or it's somewhere down in D.C. Then they'll fly from there to Houston Intercontinental, and then we will transport them to our Magnolia facility from there.
And then what happens? I'm assuming, again, because you said they're not all dog friendly and so forth, that they're in individual kennels.
Well, they have their own separate runs. However, each dog during the daytime has an individual, that's like 100 by 150 play yard. They have shaded shelters that were built by Eagle Scouts in our neighborhood where they can stay nice and cool, even on hot days. They are evaluated for the first week. We search for their triggers. We want to know if they're aggressive when they're in their crates, if they're aggressive when they're at a fence, if they're food aggressive, if they're dominant, if they're submissive, if they're aggressive toward other dogs. We have a punch list. We try to have it checked off before that dog is ever offered to the public.
And then do you do specific things to help them, I guess, to facilitate the...
Yes, we run them in and out of our ranch house. We teach them how to get comfortable living inside. In most cases, they will be potty trained while they're with us, or they don't go inside. Sometimes the adopter has to do that, but it just depends on the nature of the dog. And we'll just try to show them, affection and care that they may not have had before.
Right. Because that's what I was thinking about. Kathy's mentioned decompression a lot. And I was thinking, like, is there a specific methodology in terms of facilitating or expediting the acclimation to civilian life that they've never been privy to? And you answered that by saying, like, they get to experience a house and exposed to toys and things like that, because you probably need to know, like you said, if they're going to ingest everything or...
Yeah, that's I had a Malinois named Anubis. Anubis was beaten by foreign handlers and he had severe PTSD and he hated males. I can honestly say that he ever liked me. He was crazy about my wife. He was bonded to her like a tick. In fact, he was so neurotic when she'd leave, I had to get a mannequin her size, dress it up in her dirty clothes, and put a wig on it of her hair color, and put it on the couch, put a blanket on it, and it faked him out enough to think that the dog was sleeping. But Anubis had a habit of eating. He would eat foreign objects. I never had to get him surgery yet, but one time he passed 3 feet of cat blankets.
Oh,
It looked like a magician with a little ribbon coming out. He kept pulling and pulling and pulling, and his eyes are getting bigger. And I'm saying, "Bro, I'm sorry, but I got to do this. It's not going to come out on your own." And it was interesting, but no, the dogs ingesting things. We've had a lot of surgeries for gastric ingestions.
So as we're wrapping things up, do you have any final remarks, Bob? Things that we haven't covered, something you want to leave the audience with?
Quite honestly, I think you've given a very good overview of everything that we do. I will tell you that a donor once told me that if they had realized the amount of work that we really, really do, they would have given more. So consider that, consider our worth, consider our work ethic and our commitment to these dogs for the past 10 years, and give as you're able, if you're able, or just say kind words about us. Share us on Facebook. We like introductions of all sorts, and I very much appreciate the chance to be on today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Bob, and thank you for giving these dogs the honor and respect that they deserve.
You bet.
Yes, Bob, thanks. And we're happy to highlight Mission Canine Rescue. And we hope that our listeners appreciate what you've shared, and we can help to support you in any way.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. We hope you enjoyed our show.
Follow us on social media at PetAbility Podcast.
And please check out our affiliates and sponsors.
Simply go to the show notes for information and links.
Thank you, and tune in next time.